This is a bodyweight leg day for your premenstrual and bleed phases. This is those last few days of each cycle and the first few days of your period. For me today, I'm using this workout on day 23 and my cycle's 26 days long. So I'm just starting to enter that transition period between high hormone and low hormone states. What we see with this steep drop in hormones and this somewhat brief transition is a pro-inflammatory state. We also see a dip in energy levels, and as estrogen tanks, we sometimes see a change in mood because our feel-good hormones go with it. What that means is we have less reserve for healing the body after exercise. So with that pro-inflammatory state, there's less room for us to repair the damage that we might create during intense workouts. So the invitation there is to dial back the intensity, to work through things like a deload workout, to drop the weights and drop the intensity. That helps support your body. It'll help keep you moving through this sometimes precarious time in the cycle. And it's a workout that you can look forward to. I know when I have these deload workouts programmed in the last week of my cycle, I truly look forward to them. I know it's something that's going to serve my body and that's not going to push me past my limit. So today is all about really honing in on your form and mechanics. It's about practicing some of these more challenging movement patterns without load so that you can really kind of get a handle on how they're loaded, how the mechanics works, and how your body can move. This workout does include a brief warm-up and cool down to bookend the practice, and I will add a movement tutorial as some of these movement patterns are advanced and your form and mechanics are vital to performing these safely and effectively. So you want to be able to do it without pain and without compromising your joints or things like your low back throughout. So be sure to tune into that movement tutorial for all the guidance there. I'll also offer ways to scale each movement and progress each movement so that it can meet you wherever you are on the spectrum of fitness and however you feel on a given day. The only piece of equipment that you'll need for today's practice is an elevated surface, something like a bench or a chair. I've got a workout bench here. You may want a little bit of cushion for things like Bulgarian split squats where we're putting the top of the foot down. Sometimes that can add a little bit of comfort. And also the elevated hip thrust where you're going to be resting your shoulders on that surface. So it can be nice not to have a really hard chair or surface that can get uncomfortable. So you might just put a blanket or a cushion underneath. You want to make sure it's not going to move around on you and that it's stable so you can really bear all of your weight onto that surface. So grab your bench or your chair and let's get into our warm-up. We are going to begin our deload workout today with a very quick warm-up. Just come to the center of your mat, let your feet be nice and wide apart, and we'll just start to circle the hips, one and then the other. Nice big wide circles like you're stepping over a gate, trying to get that full circle all the way around. And then we'll reverse the direction, which is a little bit more challenging in terms of balance. So we'll just go side to side, looking for any sticky points in the hip joint, just creating a little bit of heat, a little bit of space, reverse directions again. Side to side here, start to connect to the rhythm of your breath. So in and out through the nose, just looking to increase circulation, start to create that efficient exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide with those deep inhales and exhales. Last couple here. Nice work. And then we'll come to our air squat position. We're simply going to squat down and then lift one leg out to the side. Nice and slow, squat down, weight is in the heels, and lift to the side. So we're just kind of priming the glutes for this workout. Even in a deload workout, we want to make sure that we're warming the body. A lot of the movement patterns today are fairly advanced and require a lot of conscious activation in the legs and glutes. So we're just getting them ready to move here. Let's take one more each side, down and out, down and out. Nice work. We'll come to a reverse lunge with a sweep. So we're going to step back with the right foot and then tap the opposite hand. So hand to opposite toes. Just this nice sweep forward and back to get some movement in the hip joint again, and a little bit of kind of activation, waking up that standing leg here. Breathe in and out. Start to feel that commitment to your breath as an asset throughout your workout. Last 3, 2, and 1 here. Let that moving leg come down. We're moving into a hamstring stretch. So lift the toes toward the shin and hinge at the waist, at the hip creases. So we're reaching the crown of the head forward, trying to lengthen the torso out and away from the pelvis to stretch that hamstring. Last big breath here. And we'll switch sides. So now your left leg is moving, comes back, and we're just taking it to the opposite hand. So reaching back and sweeping it forward. Again, find that rhythm of your breath. Let it guide the pace. Let it guide the exertion. It's the best indicator of intensity, especially in the end of the cycle, first few days of your period. It will tell you kind of how hard you're working. So really pay attention to the breath. Make sure it's staying in that nice low intensity zone. You want to be really in kind of the warm-up zone for most of this workout. So it's not feeling too intense. Last 3, 2, and 1. Let's extend that leg out and forward. Hinge at the hip creases. Reach the crown of the head forward and away. I like to even use the heels of the hands to press the hip creases back to feel that nice deep stretch. Hug the toes toward the shin. And then step the feet together. Keep the knees deeply bent. Just a nice gentle forward bend here. Sway the hips side to side. Pedal out the feet. Bend deeply into one and then the other. Getting a stretch, a little bit of space in the outer legs here. And then we'll come into ball pose. So feet come together, lift the heels, round the spine in, curl into a little ball. So you're bringing chin to chest, rounding through the upper back. And then release the heels bone by bone, slowly roll all the way up to standing. Let's take a big breath in and a slow breath out. That's our quick warm up. And now I will get our timer started for the workout. We will jump right into this. So we're coming into our elevated hip thrust to start. So you have your options from the movement tutorial, whether you're using the elevated surface or maybe you're coming down onto the floor. So start heading that direction. Now we'll begin in about 20 seconds with the elevated hip thrust. So again, this is body weight only. So we're really focusing on form and mechanics and muscle activation. So notice, how can you press through your feet? How can you load the body to get more from every rep? We'll go in 3, 2, and 1. Lift it up and lower down. So we lift the glutes, squeeze the inner thighs, inner knees together, and then come down. Find that nice range of motion where you're not arching the lower back to get to the bottom. And we're in the scoop hip thrust, which means we're not moving the chest or the head and neck. We're focusing the movement in the lower half of the body. So from the sternum up stays mostly stationary. Your gaze is forward, and we're focusing just on engaging those glutes. So lifting up, squeezing at the top, and coming down. Make sure as you come through the top of the movement that you're not flaring the low ribs. Last 2 and 1, rest. So we have 45-second working intervals with then a full 30 seconds of rest. Coming into our Bulgarian split squat next. So we'll I like to start with the non-dominant leg. So bring that into position. Again, you have lots of different variations from the movement tutorial, but I'll be demonstrating with the top of the foot down. The knees are just slightly separated in the starting position to give you space to sit back and down. Let's begin. Take it down and drive through that front heel. Down and up. Find your balance. So keep your chest floating over the hips the entire time. We're sitting back and driving up. Imagine that lifted knee moves straight back and down and then straight up and forward. Breathing in and out. So again, we are in that transition period between high and low hormone states. So we're not looking for intensity here. You will feel the work. These are challenging movement patterns, even in the absence of weight. But you want to be in that nice, slow and easy pace with the breath, slow and steady intensity, and rest. Switch sides, shake it out. So we have these nice longer recovery periods relative to the working intervals. And because we're not hitting our max intensity, it should feel like just enough to get recovered between each working interval. So you can take your opposite foot forward. We'll come into the second side. Bulgarian split squats are next. We'll go in just about 5 seconds here. Align your shoulders over your hips, and then remember you're sitting back into a chair. This is a squat movement pattern. So sitting back, chest stays elevated. We're not leaning forward or back. Check in with your breath every step of the way. If you start to feel like you're getting a little bit breathless, just slow down the pace a little bit. I know for myself, I start to kind of hurry through body weight movement, but this is an opportunity to really feel how you're loading that front leg. Slow it down. Notice what happens when you really drive the floor away through that front heel. Can you target the glute even deeper? You might even take a hand to your glute to feel that work in action. Last one, and rest. We'll move through our squat to hip hinge next. So we're just alternating between these two movement patterns, again, to really just drive home the difference between the hip hinge and the squat. Once you can kind of internalize and create the muscle memory for the difference between these two movement patterns, you'll be able to get more from each one. So we'll start with our squat. Bring your hands behind your head. Chest is elevated. We squat it down and then hinge at the hips. Straighten the legs. Reach the crown of the head forward. Weight is in the balls of the feet. And come up through your hip hinge. And then we come down back to that hip hinge. Switch to the squat. Lift the chest. So feel that difference. And then drive it up to stand. So whichever position you come out of, that's the one you go into next. Come to your hip hinge and lift up. Then back down to the hip hinge. Turn the toes slightly out. Lift the chest. Lower the hips and squat. Come back in. Inhale. Exhale to your hip hinge and all the way up. You got this. Let's get one more rep. 3, 2, and 1. Now the fun begins with pistol squats. So you can use your sit to stand as the alternative for these, or your hand supported pistol squats. So the leg that is working is opposite the bench, and your opposite hand is there for support to catch you on the way down. If you have pistol squats in your practice, by all means, please feel free to practice these freestanding. I'm still working toward continuous reps, so I'll be here. Come down into the pistol squat and drive through that heel. So this is really at its core, it's a single leg squat. I like to have that opposite arm kind of creating counterbalance here. We reach out, inhale, exhale to drive up. This one requires a lot of hip and spine mobility. So working the range of motion that is available to you today. Maybe that is up high, maybe you're here, and just working the top range of motion. Otherwise, coming all the way down and all the way up. You'll feel this in the quads and the glutes. Last one, and come up. So I'll be turning to the other side, or I might just be able to adjust the position of the bench here so that I can stay facing you. I don't like to turn my back to you in this video. So we'll come into our second side. Just come to the other side of your chair or your bench. Moving to pistol squats. Next, we'll get ready in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So take it down nice and slow, feel that catch point, and then press it up through that front heel. So the surface is there to support you. You want to take the elbow straight back and lift it up. But if you can, try to lighten the weight on that hand so that you're really driving the movement through that working heel. You got it. You'll even feel the sides of the waist working a little bit. This is bonus core work every step of the way. And press up. We've got just a few more seconds left here. That is the end of round 1, 2, and 1. And we will start with round 2. Our elevated hip thrust is next. So you can come into position, take the base of your shoulder blades at that elevated surface. You can also be on the floor, or maybe you're elevating your heels on the surface as opposed to your shoulders. Find your position, gather your breath, one big inhale, and a slow exhale. Let's begin now. Lift those hips up and slowly dip down. So again, your gaze staying nice and neutral, looking forward the whole time. And as you come up, you're scooping the hip bones toward the low ribs. So it's not a tuck of the tail, but it's that gentle integration in the pelvis at the top. So as you come up, again, magnetize the inner thighs, inner knees to the midline, and squeeze the outer glutes to get more of that activation. Even as you come down, stay integrated in the lower belly. So we're not puffing the ribs or the belly as you come down, but lifting up and staying nice and close through that gap. And rest. Those are challenging even with body weight only. That's what I love about some of these little tricks like the elevation, to give us more range of motion where we can make use of the equipment we walked in with, our body weight only. We're coming into Bulgarian split squats next. So take your feet into position. Again, you want to have space to be able to sit back into your chair. Take that lifted knee straight back and forward. So you're sitting back and then driving up. Notice the weight distribution in your feet. Can you lighten the load on the back foot so you can wiggle your toes? You can move the foot side to side. We're not really smashing that foot into your bench, but it's just there for kind of a balance guide. It's there to keep you stable side to side so that you can load that front leg efficiently. We're here, 12 more seconds. Stay with me. Keep the head and chest nice and elevated. You have that expansive breath. Should be able to move mostly in and out through the nose and rest with the occasional breath, maybe out through the mouth to release a little bit of heat. But this should be in that nice low intensity threshold where we're not pushing too hard. We're really just working on the skills and the mechanics. So we'll come with our second side up next for Bulgarian split squats. Again, make sure you have room to travel back and forward from that standing position into the squat. Let's begin now. Sit it back and drive it up through that front heel. You can slow this way down if you like to be able to feel the difference in your working legs. I love this single-sided work to really be able to identify and feel in your body the change from one side to the other, from the dominant side to the non-dominant side. This works to correct any postural imbalances or strength imbalances that we have from side to side, because we are encouraging each side to work independently. So your dominant side can't start to take over if the other side gets tired. We're here for 3, 2, and 1. Our next movement pattern, squat to hip hinge. So we're just alternating back and forth between these two key movements two super important movements for lower body work. And this is a great way to really practice them both together so that you can pick up on the subtleties of each one. You can pick up on how the body position changes, how the loading angle changes, and how you can really leverage each one in different applications. Let's begin. Squat it down, parallel the feet, straighten the legs, reach the crown of the head forward, and then rise up to stand. Keep the belly braced the whole time. So we're knitting low ribs and hip points together, and come up through your squat. Down through the squat, into the hip hinge. We exit through the hip hinge, and then we enter through the hip hinge. Come through the squat. This time we exit through the squat, which means we then enter through the squat. So we're just alternating the path back and forth between hip hinge and a deep squat. Here, with body weight only, you can work on deepening your range of motion, so bringing the hips a little lower, and rest. Working those two phases of the movement to kind of develop more mobility in the hips and better control under tension as you come all the way down. Pistol squats are next. Again, you have your options. You can be in the top range of motion, or you can be in a sit to stand. Lots of ways to get the same key actions to help you on your path to the full pistol squat. Let's go in 2, 1. So we're coming down, feel that connection, and then drive it up. So loading that standing leg. The opposite leg is adding a bit of resistance as you move that foot out at a distance. Try not to round in the upper back, so even as you come down, you're keeping the head and chest elevated. Depending on the mobility in the hips and the knee, it might feel difficult to keep the chest upright. So if you start to feel that, you can always scale it back, take a different modification. So a different entry point to these pistol squats. Last 3, 2, and 1. Excellent job. We'll switch sides now. So coming to the other side of your bench. And again, just paying attention to the difference that you feel from one side to the other. Connect with the rhythm of your breath, check in, make sure you're not getting too elevated. I know myself, after those pistol squats, kind of getting close to that moderate intensity threshold. So I'm just gonna slow it down, try to lower the intensity just a little bit, and let's begin by slowing the pace. So work more in that conscious loading pattern, not rushing through. Sometimes with these more challenging movement patterns, there's a tendency to have a stuck point. That's your opportunity for growth. That is where you want to work so that you can build sequentially in these different movement patterns. So if you find that you get stuck about halfway, work that range of motion for a little bit longer, or come to your sit to stand. You want to avoid twisting the torso and try to stay square through the hips and shoulders. Rest. That is the end of round 2. We are already coming close to the home stretch of this workout. We have one more round of this work with the bench, and then we'll come into our glute finisher, our 6-minute glute finisher. So as you're ready, lower into position, coming into your hip thrust next. So we've got the shoulder blades, tips of the shoulder blades at the base of that bench, and we'll begin now. So we lift it up. Find that strong loading angle and then drive through the heels. Feel a little bit of power as you extend the hips. So we hinge and extend. It's that drive through the heels and then hugging of the legs to the midline. Sometimes I like to have a finger and a thumb on low ribs and hip points, and almost like I'm drawing those 2 points together at the top. Make sure that your head and neck are staying nice and neutral, not creating any strain in the upper back or the shoulders, but really letting the lower body do most of the work here. Last 3, 2, and 1. Slowly come out. Shake it out. We're coming into our Bulgarian split squats next. So you can I like to start again with the non-dominant side, just when the movement is fresh, and then use that as kind of a baseline to gauge the sensation in the dominant side. So we'll come into position, top of the back foot on your elevated surface. We'll go in 3, 2, 1. So we sit back into that chair, full flexion in the back knee, and drive it up. Make sure that you're loading that front leg and not relying too much on the back foot for weight bearing, but instead, most of the weight is in that front foot. Drive through the heel, straight up and straight down. So shoulders stay floating over the hips the entire time here, back and up. Find the rhythm of your breath. If you need to, slow down the pace. You might find some movement with the arms if it feels good. We inhale to come down and exhale to rise up. Last one, and rest. Switching sides, shake it out. Enjoy a few very deep breaths in and out through the nose in between. So we're working to calm the nervous system, recover fully between each set. What that means is lengthening your exhale relative to your inhale where possible. The heart rate speeds up on the inhale and it slows down on the exhale. So the more that you can get the benefit of that slowing process, the quicker you'll recover. Let's begin. Take it back. Drive it up. Sit back into your chair and lift up. I know your legs are starting to feel this work, this nice slow accumulation of effort, where we're not pushing, we're not speeding up quickly, but it's that slow, steady pace, keeps us in a slower metabolic pathway, where we're relying more on fatty acid utilization. This is about that time where that pathway starts to come online. Longer duration. So after about 5 to 10 minutes, we can kind of kickstart that engine and rest. Shake it out. Squat to hip hinge is next. So again, remember, we're just alternating this movement pattern, switching from one to the other. Just make sure that you're arranging the feet as you go. So slightly out for the squat, and then we parallel the feet for the hip hinge so that the hips and toes are facing the same direction. Let's come into position. Hands behind the head. Lift hip bones to low ribs. Stretch up through the chest. Here we go. Squat it down. Hip hinge, parallel the feet, lean slightly forward into the ball mounds, and come up to stand. Then we come in through the hip hinge, out through the squat. And we come out through the squat, then we enter through the squat. Come out through the hip hinge. So we just reverse from one to the other. I want you to feel the movement in the spine. How does the spine have to rearrange to come from your hip hinge, where it's moving as a unit, to the squat, where the chest and head stay elevated. So it moves together, and then we lift it up into the squat, all the way up, and rest. We are closing this final circuit with our pistol squats. So you can come into position on one side of your bench. We have just 2 more exercises in this portion, and then we'll come onto the mat for that isolation work in the glutes. In about 10 seconds, we'll be working the side that is opposite your bench. Bring your hand down to catch you if you need it, or you're in the sit to stand progression. Let's begin now. So we stretch that leg forward, sit back, and drive it up. Again, see if you can keep your shoulders and your hips square the entire time. Avoid that twist that wants to happen in the spine when we load asymmetrically. It requires a ton of core stabilization to keep your body in that square alignment. You're wanting that working leg, the knee to stay more or less over the ankle, not too far ahead of the toes. So you're sort of sitting back again into that chair to come up. Not leaning too far forward, but really creating that isolation work. Last rep here. And slowly come out, shake it out. We will switch sides. This is our last exercise of this circuit work. So be ready after this to transition onto your belly next. But let's not skip too far ahead. We still have one more round of pistol squats. Let's get into position. Big breath in, shake it out, and let's begin. So sit back, reach that opposite leg forward, and come all the way up. Head and shoulders elevated. Spine moves straight up, straight down. So not leaning forward or back. We get this nice mobility in the hips. This one reminds me of the sit to stand test. So the marker of longevity being that the fewer points of contact that you need with the ground to move from a seated position up to standing, the better your chances of staying mobile as you age. So this one, such an important movement pattern for sitting to stand. Shake it out. So if nothing else, your pistol squats are contributing to your longevity by allowing you fewer points of contact with the ground as you move from a seated position to standing. We're coming into our Frogger pumps next. So you'll come onto the belly, get into position. We're bringing the heels and the inner edges of the feet together. Pillow your head on your hands and lift. So we're lifting the thighs, squeezing the glutes, and coming down. Again, I want you to focus on keeping the lower back long. So you're not crunching into the lower back to make that lift happen, but you're creating the contraction in the glutes to lift the thighs off the mat. Keep that press of the heels into each other. Ball mounds of the feet. So the big toe side of the feet pressing into each other. That will help you create the body position to be able to isolate the glutes. We have 45-second working intervals here. We're shortening the rest period in between just to be enough to transition. So from here, we'll change. We've got 15 seconds to come onto the back and get ready for butterfly glute bridges. So we come onto the back, hug your heels really close to your body, bring the soles of the feet to touch, knees wide apart, and let's begin. We lift it up, squeeze. So even though your inner thighs are split, I want you to imagine at the top that you're hugging them together, like you're trying to join them together without losing the connection of the soles of the feet. Make sure your lower back is not arching excessively. It will have to move to get your hips into that elevated position, but we want to avoid too much of a back bend in that hypermobile portion of the spine. The backs of the shoulders stay grounded. We lift it up and back down. Find a few more breaths here. Last 3, 2, and 1, right back to the belly. So once again, bringing the big toe side of the feet together, knees come nice and wide apart, pillow your head on your hands. So again, keep that connection of the inner edges of the feet, and let's lift. So we lift the legs and lower. Again, your torso nice and still. That will help kind of relax and elongate the lower back so that we can isolate the glutes. So you're hugging heels into each other. Imagine you have a piece of paper between your heels and you're trying not to let it drop. Breathe in and out. So this slow and focused work should help bring you more into your cool down heart rate, which we'll be heading into next. Breathe in and out nice and slow. Here for just a few more seconds. And then we're switching on to the back once again. Let's transition. So we're moving pretty continuously here. We've just got those 15-second transitions to change the body position. And let's get ready to move. Now, butterfly bridge. Take it up and lower down. Squeeze the glutes and gently lower down. Make sure you're not puffing the low ribs at the top. Stay integrated in the low belly. Breathe in, nice and slowly exhale. See if you can get even more mastery over the breath here help activate that parasympathetic nervous system response, especially now that we're through the peak of our workout, which will likely have a little bit of sympathetic drive, but not so much that it should throw you off balance, especially when we kind of guide the body back down with this slower rhythm, this intentional breath pattern, and rest. Last round, come onto your belly. Bring the inner edges of the feet together, knees wide apart, and pillow your head on your hands. We'll come into our frog pumps and begin. So we lift the thighs up and slowly lower down. Lift it up, squeeze, and lower. Let the inner edges of your feet stay glued together as you squeeze the glutes. Try to keep your head and neck neutral. I'm just lifting my head for better sound quality, but you can keep your head pillowed on your hands. Knees stay nice and wide. Keep squeezing the inner edges of the feet together. That gets that pre-activation and then the conscious lift. Find your breath. Stay with it here. We're here for just 3 more seconds. And rest, switch onto your back, and then we will stay there for the duration. So you'll be enjoying your cool down from this supine position. Let's finish it out with butterfly bridge, heels close to the body, and begin. Lift it up, squeeze, and slowly lower down. You should feel the inner thighs activate, the outer glutes activate here to create that lift, that height in the hips. Breathe in on the way down. Slow exhale. See if you can start to transition to nose breathing exclusively. So in through the nose and out through the nose. Find that sort of instant calming factor that comes into play when we can be intentional with the breath. And we're here for just a few more reps. And rest. Let's bring the knees to that parallel position. Just start to windshield wiper your knees side to side here, knocking the knees, releasing the lower back. We'll give a few static stretches to close our practice today, a very, very quick cool down to send you on your way. Your breath rate should be all the way back down, have recovered mostly. We'll keep the left foot on the floor, start to hug your right knee into your chest, and then cycle that right leg out and away. So one direction, and then reverse it. So cycle the other direction, flexing and pointing the foot and to get that full range of motion. And then we'll keep that right leg extended, hug behind the right thigh or maybe the right calf, and just start to gently encourage that leg close to your body. Make sure that you're creating that nice strong spine, so pressing the upper back into the floor, not trying to lift to meet the leg, but instead just inviting the leg toward you. You can flex and point the foot here, circle the ankle, just allowing a little bit of a stretch for that right leg, and we're getting that slight inverted quality, so increasing blood flow to the heart, which signals your heart rate to slow down. This should help create that nice wave of calm. And then from here, half happy baby, we'll take that right knee out to the side, bring the top of the thigh next to your right low ribs. Press the sole of the foot skyward and then hug the sole of the foot down with your hand. Get this nice stretch across the bowl of the pelvis. You can let your left knee kind of relax out to the side. And then we'll cross right ankle over left knee, supine pigeon or figure 4. Just kind of rock side to side. This should feel really good on that right glute, create some intentional traction. Sometimes I like to take my thumb to the hip crease and gently pull away so you kind of increase the sensation in the outer hip. And then we'll keep the shape of the legs, just lower the legs over to the left, coming into a twist. So you can keep that right knee bent. And then if it's available, maybe you find your left toes with your right hand to create a quad stretch on the left side. So getting into the hip flexor, kind of the front line of the left side of the body here. Find that slow, steady, relaxing breath. And then we'll transition to the other side now. So let your right foot touch down, hug your left knee into chest, and then begin to cycle that leg forward, close to your body, and then away. And just kind of flushing the knees, the hips, the ankles, reverse direction. Love this supine cool down in premenstrual territory where you have just enough energy to kind of take you through your low intensity workout, and then you get to relax and calm down. Let's straighten that leg out, reach for the back of your left thigh or your left calf. Again, shoulders stay grounded. We're just encouraging that leg a little bit closer to you. Point and flex the foot. Maybe you circle the foot. Whatever feels best. Again, just feel kind of that rush of blood from the elevated leg down towards the heart. Let the heart relax a little bit. It doesn't have to work as hard in these inverted positions. And then half happy baby now. Take that knee out to the side. Let your right knee just kind of relax and fall away. We want to keep the spine nice and straight. And then if you want to deepen the sensation, move your pubic bone toward your right foot. So away from the navel, kind of tilting the pelvis forward. That should give you more sensation in the left thigh, the left groin. And then we'll cross the left ankle over right knee, supine pigeon or figure 4. Use your left elbow to press that left knee out nice and wide and gently rock side to side here. You can use your thumb to a hip crease to lengthen it out and away. A few more very deep breaths. And then we'll slowly lower the shape of your legs over to the right. You can keep that left knee bent so that you still have a bit of a hip stretch. And then if it's available, you find your right toes, top of the right foot with the left hand to stretch the right quad. If you want to deepen the sensation there, try to squeeze the right glute or flex your right glute. You'll feel that in the right quadricep, the front of the thigh. We'll enjoy one more big breath together here. And slowly let it out. Come back through center, hug your knees into your chest, give yourself a big squeeze, roll on the lower back, kind of releasing any tension there. And then nice and slowly rock forward and back on the spine, making your way to a seat. And then we'll transition through a nice, gentle forward bend. We really want to be mindful at this stage in the cycle of changing body positions nice and slowly to let our blood pressure calibrate every step of the way. Come into your half forward bend, hands to thighs, maybe a round of cat and cow to just really stretch and rinse the spine. And then we'll slowly roll up to stand. Please enjoy a big breath with me. Inhale. And exhale, sigh it out. Thank you so much for joining me for this workout today. I hope it felt like exactly what you needed at this time in the cycle. So a little bit of movement to kind of tap your well of endorphins, but without tapping you out. So you have lots of energy in reserve. You're contributing to your stress resilience rather than contributing to the stress in your body. So thank you again for being here and for letting your body be moved.